day everyone, this is Daniela Rosa Dramata from Group 6, and today we will be discussing about the social learning theory. And to begin this discussion, allow me first to define what is social learning theory. Social learning theory is a study of learned behaviors through observation, modeling, and imitating of new behaviors that are reinforced by people or models. Social learning theory is a theory that expresses that the behavior of human is learned observationally. Social learning theory is developed by a psychologist named Albert Bandura. He believes that people learn behaviors through observation of others, then impersonate what they have observed. As referred in the module, one of the examples that shows proof in this theory is the famous Bobodal experiment of Albert Bandura. This experiment measured the children's behavior after seeing the models get rewarded, get punished, or experience no consequences for beating up the Bobodal. So as observed, in this Bobodal experiment, children shows increased aggression after observing aggressive behavior in the environment. Social learning theory describes how environmental cognitive factors interact to influence human learning behavior.
Good day everyone, this is Catherine, and this time I'm going to present the Bandura's 4 foundational process of social learning theory. These principles can all affect the social learning process and its outcomes. Even if they are all in place, there are still additional, internal, or external, or even the motivational process that may change the course of events or interfere with the learning process. So these principles are the following: attention, the retention, the motivation, and the reproduction. Let's start first with attention. Attention is the environment surrounding the observed event and the attention level of the subject. Meanwhile, the retention is the capacity of the subject to remember or to retain a observed event or the behavior. Third one is the reproduction. Reproduction is the cognitive or physical ability of the subject to imitate a certain behavior. Lastly is the motivation. Motivation is the extent to which the observer wants to practice a new behavior. With that, these assumptions, principles, variables, and factors are the basis of social learning theory and its wide range of application, circumstances, and the measured outcomes. It is very important for us to keep this in mind when applying the theory to our social work studies or practice.
Good morning everyone, I am Novemeki Hoyana and I will be discussing about the 3 concepts of social learning theory and the theoretical assumptions. In social learning theory, there are 3 core concepts. First is the idea that people can learn through observation. Next is the notion that internal mental states are an essential part of this process. Finally, this theory recognizes that just because something has been learned, it does not mean that it will result in a change in behavior. According to Bandura, that fortunately most human behavior is learned observationally through modeling from observing others. One forms idea of how new behaviors are performed, and on later occasions, this coded information serves as a guide for action. So according kay Bandura, there are 3 concepts of social learning theory. So first, people can learn through observation. It is one of the best known experiments in the history of psychology, involved a doll named Bubu. Bandura demonstrated that children learn and imitate behaviors they have observed in other people. So, Bandura identified 3 basic models of observational learning. First is a live model. Second is a symbolic model. third is a verbal instructional model. So the second basic models of observational learning is the symbolic model. It involves a real or fictional characters displaying behaviors in books, film, television programs, or online media. Then, ang last nga, basic model sa observational learning kay kuan a verbal instructional model. So, this involves descriptions and explanations of a behavior. So, as you can see, of observational learning does not even necessarily require watching another person to engage in an activity. Hearing verbal instructions such as listening to a radio can also lead to learning. We can also learn by reading, hearing, or watching the actions of characters in books and films. Sunod nga core concept sa kuan social learning theory kay kuan. Mental states are important to learning. Bandura noted that external or environmental reinforcement was not the only factor to influence learning and behavior. Bandura realized that reinforcement does not always come from outside sources but also on your mental state and motivation play an important role in determining whether a behavior is learned or not. Bandura described that intrinsic reinforcement as a form of internal rewards such as pride, satisfaction, and a sense of accomplishment. The last core concepts of social learning theory kay learning does not necessarily lead to change. So, how we determine when something has been learned. In many cases, learning can be seen immediately when the new behavior is displayed. Let's move on to theoretical assumptions. The two major assumptions of the social learning theory include the theories of classical conditioning and operant conditioning. So, classical conditioning or Pavlovian conditioning is the theory that people learn by association through the simple pattern of stimulus and a response. Operant conditioning adds another layer of complexity to this, resulting in the theory that people learn through the association of certain behaviors with punishments or rewards. Thus, these two theories, along with Bandura's idea that behavior is learned from the environment, form the theoretical frameworks for the social learning theory. And that could be all. Thank you.
If you are interested in becoming a social worker or a related field, you already know that human behavior can be extremely complex. To make it sense, it is important that you familiarize yourself with the foundational theories of the field. So now, we will be tackle on how social learning theory applies to social work. Social workers proficient in social learning theory may be able to draw from the rich research it has yielded, utilizing relevant practice models in client work. So, cognitive behavioral therapy. It is the most application of the social work practice. This psychotherapy leading treatment for a variety of mental health condition. It is also emphasizes the link between an individual's thought, feelings, and behaviors, such supporting the clients as they work toward identify and learning the patterns of irrational, harmful, or self-destructive thoughts and behaviors that lead to emotional distress. Example: a person who observes someone treating others poorly. So the social workers can use social learning theory to identify the behavioral models which a client may be emulating and use that information to help correct negative behavior, such as underage drinking, drug use, or unprotected sex. In other words, social learning theory applied in social work but emphasizes the importance of observing, modeling, and imitating the behaviors, attitudes, and emotional reactions of others.
Why social learning theory is important? It is important to understand that, as the case with any field, part of being an effective social worker, that professionals may have to retain a strong fundamental knowledge of the history, discoveries, and theories that have made their discipline what it is today. But in the field of social work, these theories go beyond the educational sphere. Rather, they have potential to be basis for effective therapies and treatments, helping to improve the mental health and livelihoods of clients. And additional applications of the social learning theory may be particularly valuable as they can empower people to recognize and trace the roots of their issues, identify patterns they may have not otherwise seen, and ultimately break the habits and behaviors that harm them.